Audio on demand from Vision Christian Media.
I think the thing is, it isn't just necessarily damaging ourselves and having a disadvantage for us. It can actually wreak a bit of havoc in our family settings and with our partners as well. So while there's a negative impact on us, it's important for us to think, well, what's the impact on others of me doing this?
Ever hear yourself saying, I'll do it tomorrow, thinking that if we put it off another day, it gives us more time, and the next day you say the same thing, so it never gets done. I read that procrastination is like a credit card. It's a lot of fun until you get the bill. Our guest today is Andrew Beveridge. He's a psychologist and a leadership development consultant. We're going to talk about some of the principles he shares with corporate leaders and how to be more effective and to get things done, and how they can be applied to our homes and in our relationships. That's Andrew Beveridge, my wife Kate, and I'm Brett Ryan for Focus on the Family, Australia.
Well, welcome to the program. We're really looking forward to our conversation. But before we do, tell us a little about your background, your family, and what that entails.
Yeah, for sure. It's so great to be here, Kate and Brett. Very excited to catch up with you guys again. So my wife and I, Fiona, she's a school nurse. We've got 3 sons. I keep calling them teenagers, but the eldest is 20, and then we've got an 18-year-old,
Yes.
so he's technically a teenager still, and then a 16-year-old, and they're off doing various bits of study and work and things like that, so a fairly busy household. For myself, I'm a psychologist by training. I specialised in organisational psychology, which is really psychology of people in an organisational setting.
Yep.
So I really lack the empathy and concern for human beings to do like clinical or counselling or anything like that. Kind of went down the corporate angle and did management consulting for a good number of years. And then the last 12 years been running my own business, really around leadership development, just helping leaders to make that transition from, looking after yourself and really trying to get your own job done to how do I look after other people, but also how do you lead in all areas of your life as well. And we're involved in church as well. We attend at Hillsong Melbourne City campus there, and we've been going there for, about 4 years or so now. And involved in things like connect groups, which are basically having people over to your house to have a chat about things, study the Bible a bit and share that journey together, but also in some spiritual support roles with our pastors and other things around the place. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, even though these principles, you're applying them into leadership and we want people to lead their homes well,
exactly.
or lead their marriage well, lead their families well, and we believe that some of the principles that you do in the corporate setting will definitely apply into our family life. So we're talking about procrastination.
Yes.
What is it?
Yeah, well, I loved your credit card analogy, Brett, earlier, because that's exactly that. And I think we can all relate to that experience of the short-term buzz and excitement of being able to spend some money that we actually don't have. And then we can also relate to getting that statement in the mail about a month later and what that looks like as well. Effectively, procrastination it's voluntarily putting something off, even though we know we're going to be worse off for it, right? And I guess there's a couple of key things in there. It's voluntary. So it's not just being disorganized. It's actually choosing to go, I'm not going to do this now. And it's also being aware that you're going to be worse off for doing it. So it's not just I'm choosing to do something else and not being aware that that's actually going to be a problem down the track. It's going, well, I know this is going to be a problem and I'm choosing to put it off. And I think there's plenty of examples that you could think of in our own lives, and I'm sure for those listening in, as I did as I was preparing for this, is that you do have these things that come up and you go, I always kind of procrastinate in that particular area, and
I remember going through high school, and all the back in the day they were called options that you had for your subjects, and they were just the big assignments, and sitting there going, now will I do it now, or will I go out and play sport? I'll go play sport and put it off. And so then you're sitting all through the night before, finishing it off. And you go, was it really worth it?
Yeah.
It wasn't, but,
So why do we do it? Why do we procrastinate.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one because you look at it and go, so given that, and, even your example, Kate, I'm sure that probably wasn't a once-off, right? So we repeat these patterns.
It wasn't a once-off.
I mean,
You're correct.
No judgment
She
here,
has this
Kate.
pride that she works well under pressure.
Yeah, that's
and
it.
I like getting things done, and she's going, I work better under pressure.
I actually have changed that a lot now because I don't have the same capacity to work through the night.
Yeah, that's right. So you've learned that the trade-off is too much.
Yes.
Really, the key thing with procrastination, I think that will help us in our relationships, in our parenting as well, is to realize, why do we do it? What is the benefit in it? And it really is about a short-term benefit to our mood. So effectively, when we have something that's big, that's looming, and we don't want to do it, how does it make us feel? It makes us feel terrible, right? So procrastination in the short term makes us feel better. It actually reduces that because we've made a decision not to do it. So we've actually, our brain effectively breathes a sigh of relief. I don't have to do that hard thing now. And so we get this little boost in our mood. The catch is that is short term, and it does compound the problem. And in fact, the amount of effort and things that are required are just going to get worse.
Yeah.
And so I like to think of it's the teenagers cleaning their room sort of thing. That's something that certainly we continue to struggle with in our household. Probably just us.
Really? Yeah. No
one listening in. If you want to
that problem.
No, we never had that
if anyone
problem. So
can,
just your house.
If you have any ideas at home, just if you can send those in, that would be great. But it is that thing of clean up your room. Yeah, I'll get to it. But it is that thing of it's harder after week 2, week 3, week 4.
Yeah.
That task isn't just 3 weeks harder. It's almost exponentially harder because it's a far more difficult thing than actually going, let's just take 15 minutes and see how you're going and how much you can get done now.
And people may even apply that to, into their marriage life, like, I know I need to do better.
Yes. Yeah.
And I know I need to be more intentional. I need to be more present.
Yep.
But it doesn't happen. And then it actually has that, ripple effect on the relationship and on the family life.
Yeah, for sure. And it might even be like a challenging conversation that that you need to have with your partner, and you decide that, look, I'll kick that down the road a little bit, and hopefully it'll be an easier conversation to have in a week or a month. And again, exactly the same principle. In the moment, you actually feel better because it's like, oh, great, tonight I don't need to have that hard conversation.
Yes.
But
avoidance is not always going to be the answer, is it?
No, because it doesn't go away. And if you think about how short term it is, it's literally the next day you're back to square one. It hasn't actually helped you out for a month or a year. It's helped you out for moments where you feel better in the moment. And so that's the function of it. The catch with it is it's pretty dysfunctional. So over time, and we all recognize that, that's part of that voluntary choice, and also knowing that we're going to be worse off. That combination means we absolutely appreciate what's going on. We've made this decision, but there's not enough incentive or not enough focus on us on the upside of actually doing it now, that perhaps we take that extra step to get started.
I'm just thinking about people out there listening and going, well, I put things off because I need to be flexible in life. Do we become so inflexible that we can't postpone doing something? Am I procrastinating, or am I just being flexible?
Yes.
Because I think...
Is that justification?
Yeah, well, sometimes because things pop up. Things pop up and we have to move things to the next day. Is that procrastinating or just being flexible?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes, so putting something off isn't inherently a bad thing. So that's not procrastination. It really is if we put it off knowing we're going to be worse off for doing it. I think that's the key part. So if you are choosing to delay something because you know there's some advantages in doing that it does buy you a bit more flexibility. And look, in a way, as human beings, we're wired so differently to each other. Some people, and I'm like this, love to make decisions, love to close things down, just go, this is it, we're off and racing. Others, and I can see this in my kids and other people that I work with and interact with, others like to leave things flexible and open, right? So for me, planning a holiday 6 to 12 months out, for me, is liberating.
Yeah.
For a lot of other people, that's debilitating. Like, what do you mean you plan a holiday that far out? What do you mean you plan out each day? And I've had to learn to be more flexible. So it's not that I've learnt to procrastinate. It's just that I've learnt to be more flexible in the moment.
Yeah.
To actually not have to organise everything in order to have a fun time.
So it's really more personality driven.
Oh, for sure.
And their character.
Yes.
This may be a bit controversial. Is one gender more prone to procrastination than the other?
Yeah, look, I haven't particularly seen that in the research. I think we're pretty gifted universally at procrastinating, so it seems to be something that each of us have a fairly equal run at. I think people were procrastinating quite different things, and in fact, you might be quite different in your job than you might be at home. So you can absolutely see people who are organized to the hilt, disciplined, focused, get everything done at work, and then at home, it's almost like, oh, just let me relax, collapse on the couch and watch Instagram reels for half an hour, rather than having to get that dishwasher on or hassle one of the kids about doing whatever it might be. So there's a bunch of things. But I think the thing is, it isn't just necessarily damaging ourselves and having a disadvantage for us. It can actually wreak a bit of havoc in our family settings and with our partners as well. So while there's a negative impact on us, it's important for us to think, well, what's the impact on others of me doing this?
Yeah, well, it comes down to example, doesn't it? Setting an example for our kids.
Yep.
When you've got something to do, you just do it.
Yes.
You don't put it off and make excuses. And I think that's a big one. We often, and we've all fallen into this trap. You get caught up in the busyness of life.
Yes.
Then one day you stop and you look and you go, my goodness, we've let this slip.
Yep.
Well, how do you see families really falling into that trap?
Yeah, I think for sure that busyness, I really relate to that. And I think lots of families, lots of our peers, when we look around, my wife works in a primary school, just looking at some of those families and what they're doing, we can put so much pressure on ourselves as families to get a lot done, to have that weekend that is really chock full of activities, rostered, scheduled. Anyone with kids that are in sort of semi-professional sport level, like that's a huge commitment. So if it's basketball or, heaven forbid, rowing or swimming or something that requires, for whatever reason, you to do it right at 4 a.m. instead of 4 p.m. All those starts, more power to them. But then you multiply that up by the number of kids, and it can be that cliche of the taxi. You're just driving around all the time from activity to activity. And I think that kids and families can end up exhausted with that. It's just tiring. Yeah. And the catch with that is then you can end up in a pattern where you're not having enough time to stop, reflect, and think about what's actually the best way of doing this. And even beyond that, is this even the right thing to do? Like, does this align with what I see as my purpose and meaning in life? Or am I just doing this because, I don't know, my parents taught me to do it, or it's expected of me by someone else, or whatever? And we can end up in that locked in that pattern. I think about it's like you're climbing a ladder. Sometimes people are climbing a ladder and it's not even their ladder. They're like climbing a corporate ladder or a parenting ladder or whatever it might be, but it's actually not been set up by them. They've just kind of casually put it there, and you can get to the top and go, well, hang on, what was all that about?
Our guest today is psychologist Andrew Beveridge, and you're listening to Focus on the Family, Australia.
The Word for today is Australia's most widely read daily devotional, designed to give you practical teaching to keep you focused on your relationship with Jesus. Read it online or subscribe to the free printed edition at thewordfortoday.com.au.
Well, welcome back. Our guest today is psychologist and leadership development consultant Andrew Beveridge, and you're listening to Focus on the Family, Australia. And we're talking about procrastination. So we know what the problem is, and many people are saying, oh, that could be me.
I know how to do it.
That's right. I'm nailing that.
Let's get to the solution. Let's everyone lean into their radios or in their cars or online, wherever they are, to say, what can we do to avoid it?
Absolutely. I'm glad people are back after the break. It would be, hopefully, this will be a bit more encouraging. There's plenty of things that we can do, and there's some really practical things. So if we think about what is procrastination trying to do, it's trying to boost our mood in the moment, even though we know we're going to be worse off. It's a voluntary choice that we make in that moment. Ironically, one of the best things that we can do is actually not do that thing straight away, but to do something that's going to boost our mood and make us feel more positive. So that might sound counterintuitive because we just said, well, procrastination's putting things off, and now you're saying do something different instead. But it's being selective about what that thing is. And if I think about that from a parenting perspective, if you are going to get or encourage your kids to do something that you know that they won't like doing, that you know that they're likely to procrastinate doing, have some fun with them first. Like, do something that's actually going to make them feel better without delving into the research too much. One of the interesting things there is that the worse the mood that the person is in, the longer they procrastinate. So there's really is this direct relationship to mood. And I think it's a great thing that we can teach our kids as well, is to get them to be observant about what are the things that boost their mood. You know, what are some things that actually make you feel better? And you can go down the route of what makes you feel worse as well. So there's, and we were just talking during the break about there's activities that are easy for kids to slot into. It's one of the things I find ironic is that, you know, in schools that we will get kids to take an iPad to school. It's like, you don't need to teach a kid how to use an iPad. Like, it's pretty intuitive. And I get the online learning space and things, but the devices are an easy distraction. They've been designed by experts, and they really are set up in a way that is really quite compelling. You know, and it could be, and I'll use Instagram Reels because I'm of a certain age, not a TikToker, right? So, but there is that thing of, it will learn you very quickly, and it will serve up things that make you feel, you know, vaguely entertained and interested. And so you look in with that. And so one of the things that we've done with our kids is to think about what are the things that actually improve your mood. And one of them is jump on your bike, go for a 15-minute ride. Like that, just a simple activity like that. It's literally 15 minutes. I find I work from home predominantly. I find for me, I just go for a walk around the block. It doesn't really take long. It's literally 8-10 minutes, depending on how fast I walk and how much I want to put things off. But when I come back, I'm ready to go. Like that's
really good.
Yeah,
very simple. Very
that little boost in your heart rate, in your mood, is all it takes to get you going. Yeah. So that's
getting out in nature alone is just so important.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people might be saying, well, I've always been a procrastinator, and it becomes their identity.
That's right.
What do we say to those type of people?
Yeah, look, I think that's a trap in all sorts of areas where we set up our identity in something that's not positive. And so, you know, we need to really place an importance in what we put our identity in and how we set that up. And we know that from a faith perspective as well, but it's true in every area of our life. If we identify as, I am someone who procrastinates, then that's a very big shift, because you've got to change who you are. It's like saying, I'm the person who's always late to events, or I'm the person who never contributes their share of, you know, the restaurant bill at the end. If you set that up as your identity, it's hard to shift your identity versus just changing a behavior and saying, well, look, I've got this behavior that I do. I don't really like it, and I want to shift it. You can change that in a week, really, with a bit of discipline and focus. So I think that makes a huge difference, that setting it as your identity is risky in all sorts of areas in our life.
I've seen it mentioned that you know, I'm doing procrastination, or I'm doing,
this behavior.
I'm not depressed. I am going through the motion of being low at the moment, but it doesn't put that label on. The same thing you can apply in this area.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's true of anxiety, depression, a whole bunch of things, and not ignoring the clinical side of that. And obviously, you know, people get help where they need it. But it's very different to identify with anything like this and say, this is me, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Because what's the other side of that? You know, it's a change in who you are as a human being. And we find that difficult, right? It's versus actually going, there's something in my life, I don't like it. And the key thing for me is it helpful or harmful? And we know that procrastination is harmful. So we get out of the, is it good or bad? You know, the judgment side of it. It's just, is it helping me? Or is it getting in the way of my goals and ambitions and where I want to head? And you can see that over time, absolutely, it's getting in the way. So how do we jump out of that and do some things that are different?
All right. What are some other things that we could do to avoid procrastination?
Yeah, look, a key one is to just get started. The great little trick is to say, look, I don't feel like doing all of this now, but I'm going to put a timer on and do 10 minutes of it. And so in our household, I contribute the vast majority of the ironing. So I have become the ironing person. I secretly suspect that Fiona actually, when she did do the ironing early in our marriage, did a particularly bad job of it to make sure that I would continue with that. But I'm quite happy to do it. And when I say happy, I hate doing it, right? So it's one of these tasks that it's
but just you're good at it.
Because I put it off, and so I end up with 3 weeks worth of shirts and various things that I need to iron. But I think actually going, right, I'm just going to start. I don't necessarily have to knock over all the... And once you start, what I find is after 10 minutes, I just keep going. It's not that bad. It's nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that process of just getting started. So that's a good trick in really any area. And with your kids, cleaning the room is a classic one. You don't need to clean all your room. why don't you actually spend 10 minutes starting to clean your room? Because how long does it take to clean a room? It's actually not anywhere near as long as we think.
Just start by putting the dirty things in the wash.
Well, we discover so many plates and cups, Kate. I mean, it's amazing.
You have no idea. One of our sons, I found 32 socks under his bed one day.
I'm just thrilled it's an even number. That's amazing.
That's
We've
true.
never found an even number of socks, but that's great.
That is rare.
That's quite a collection of socks.
I thought this room smells. Why does it smell?
You found the source.
Oh, yes, I did. I found the source.
Excellent. The mother laid
He's always
bed.
going, where are the socks?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. But I think it is then how do you build that discipline in and really how do we make the habits and routines that mean that we don't actually end up with these tasks that are overwhelming. So the cleaning the room's a classic one. If you get in that routine of 5 to 10 minutes every week or even a couple of minutes each day to just go, all right, I'm going to reset my desk. I'm going to...
little bite-sized successes.
And you can do something enjoyable at the same time. So with ironing, I'll put on a movie.
Yeah.
Because, that gives you a good hour and a half and you go, by the end I'll have it all done.
Yes.
And with kids, we used to suggest to our kids, if they're doing their rooms, put music on.
Yes.
Do something enjoyable while you're doing a task that you don't like.
Yeah.
On that note, are there things that can distract us and make us not as productive? Like we're saying, watching a movie, but then you may not necessarily be as productive if you have that distraction.
Yeah, look, I think there's lots of things that can distract us from the things that are important for sure. So I think if you're putting those together, in fact, it's funny, Kate, as you were saying that, there's some research, and a researcher calls it temptation bundling. Like we've all got these sort of guilty pleasure things that we like doing, like watching this trashy TV show or listening to a particular podcast or some music. And it's like, why don't you pair that together with the thing that you don't like doing? So, and make it the only time that you can do it. So it works really well with exercise. Like if you've got a podcast that you really enjoy listening to, I'm sure it's focused on family for most people.
Of course.
But I'm only going to listen to that when I'm at the gym on a treadmill, and so that then sets you up to go, okay, I want to listen to that thing. I'm actually going to get myself to the gym and do that exercise and pair it together.
Yeah, that's
great.
good. And then, time is running out and obviously we want to get a few more little things.
Yep.
We talk about, in a family, doing things together. We did that with the boys. We'd put the music on, do all the chores. Everyone was allocated. Everyone had a sort of a time limit to do things. But I like the idea of doing it together. And I often use the word teamwork. Together, everyone achieves more. Is that a good thing to do?
Yeah, for sure. I think any area of our life, accountability makes a huge difference. So if I think about exercise, going for a jog in the morning, it's a bit different if you hear the, pitter-patter of rain on the roof and you go, I don't think I'll go out for that walk or that jog today. It's very different if you know that your friend's waiting by the mailbox for you to come out.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of, lack of self-discipline to stay in bed when you know that someone's standing out in the rain waiting for you versus actually doing that together. The idea of doing it together as a family is a really great one. And I think, your points earlier around it does actually model it and role model what it looks like. A saying that we have in our house is that, we can do hard things. We can do difficult things. You just kind of get into them and start doing it.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a saying, I don't know who said it, and it says, no unwelcome task becomes any the less unwelcome by putting it off to tomorrow. So we have to do these things in life and in work, in our professional world. So in our final few moments, what's something that you can say to our listeners who can say, yep, that's me. I'm a procrastinator. Where's the best place to start?
Yeah. I think part of it is focusing on how will you feel when this is done? So when this is actually completed, what will that feel like? Because this is a mood-related technique that we're applying, procrastination, we're applying it to kind of make ourselves feel better. It's anchoring ourselves to that person in the future is still us. We struggle with that in financial planning in so many areas of our lives. Diet, exercise, everything, to think that the 20-year on version of us is still actually us, right?
Yeah.
It's the same person. And so I like to think about, am I helping future Andrew out here? Am I making his life easier or am I actually making it worse? So I think there is an intellectual element to it. I think that just getting started with it and getting into it, finding what is something in this that you might be able to enjoy, so the pairing it with something new that you actually do like doing or have some sense of joy and reward in it as well. I think that
rewards would be good, like give yourself a little bonus at the end of it all.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you can use sort of healthy rewards in that way. So I'm only going to let myself do that if I, finish this other task or at least get started on it. The other thing is just to be kind to ourselves. We can be so mean to ourselves. It's that thing of if we
thrash
voice in our head,
yeah.
if one of our friends spoke to us that way, they would not be our friends anymore, but we allow it. There was a fantastic piece of research looking at medication compliance with people giving medication to their pets and to themselves. And what they found is that people are much better at complying in the medication regime for their animals than they are for themselves.
Really?
Like we will look after our dogs and cats much better than we'll look after ourselves. And that's in something we know is important. We know, this is going to help us out. And so looking at that, it's like thinking about just being a bit kind to yourself and recognizing everyone procrastinates. You're not broken. It's not like not a clinical condition, and it's not something that you'll ever completely get rid of, and it will sneak up in new areas. But there will be areas of your life where you can get a real breakthrough and you can apply those same principles across. Because that's the other thing is once you're defeated in one area, you can use that as inspiration for another area.
That's so good. Well, this has been excellent. And thank you so much for sharing today.
My pleasure.
Our guest today was psychologist Andrew Beveridge. And if you'd like to find out more about him and the work that he does, you can go to his website at leadership.today. Every day, families turn to Focus on the Family Australia for help as they navigate the pressures facing their family. They need a trusted place they can turn to when life gets hard and they face unexpected difficulties. You can ensure that marriages and families receive trustworthy guidance, practical help and solid hope by donating today. Your generosity will provide biblical-based tools and resources to strengthen families, heal relationships and transform families. Would you prayerfully consider making a generous donation towards helping families thrive? And thank you for joining us today on behalf of Kate and the rest of the team. I'm Brett Ryan, inviting you to tune in to another edition of Focus on the Family Australia.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.